We don't always want meaning. Not at first. When pain hits, we want it to stop. When life collapses, we want it fixed. When something is taken from us, a person, a dream, a future, we don't ask, what does this mean? We ask, why me? And sometimes, there is no answer, no logic, no fairness, just loss, just silence. But then something strange can happen. Not immediately, not cleanly, but quietly, like breath returning after a long cry. We begin to feel the pull, to make sense of what broke us. Not to justify it, not to explain it away, but to say, if this is part of my story, what do I do with it now? That moment, when suffering becomes a question, not just a wound, is the beginning of something new. Frankl understood this intimately. He didn't promise a way out of pain. He offered a way through it. And today, we walk with him into that question, not to find an answer, but to find a reason to keep going. The weight of meaningless pain. There is pain, and then there is the weight of pain that feels meaningless. Pain without reason, without redemption, without direction. This is the kind that doesn't just hurt. It empties you. It pulls the floor out from beneath your beliefs. It leaves you not just broken, but disoriented. Because when something terrible happens, we don't just suffer the event. We suffer the collapse of the story we were living inside. We thought life made sense, that good things happen to good people, that effort leads to reward, that love protects us. But when tragedy strikes without logic, a diagnosis, a betrayal, a random accident, we lose more than what was taken. We lose the why. And without a why, even the smallest pain becomes unbearable. That's why Frankl believed that suffering by itself is not the real enemy. What truly crushes the soul is suffering that appears to serve no purpose. Pain can be carried if it is part of something larger, a mission, a devotion, a meaning. But pain that seems arbitrary, cruel, or wasted, that's the kind that eats away at a person from the inside out. Frankl didn't deny pain. He dignified it, not by minimizing it, but by asking a daring question. What if this suffering is asking something of me? Not to punish, but to awaken. Frankl's lens between stimulus and response. When Viktor Frankl was imprisoned in Nazi concentration camps, he lost everything: his family, his freedom, even his name. Each day, he woke to inhumanity, to hunger, cruelty, randomness, death. He had no control over what was done to him. But he discovered something extraordinary. Between what happened to him and how he responded, there was a space. And in that space was choice. Frankl called this the last of the human freedoms. The ability to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. He saw men lose their humanity, and others, despite everything, share a crust of bread, whisper a prayer, hold on to a fragment of purpose. He realized that we are not simply victims of circumstance. We are interpreters. We give things meaning, or we allow meaninglessness to consume us. Frankl's philosophy, logotherapy, begins with a reversal. Don't ask, what do I want from life? Ask instead, what is life asking of me? That question changes everything, because now your suffering isn't a dead end. It becomes a summons to grow deeper, to love more fiercely, to endure with dignity, to find a why, so that even in the darkest how, you still have a reason to live. What kind of strength comes from suffering? Not all strength looks like triumph. Not all warriors hold swords. There is a kind of strength that comes not from overpowering life, but from enduring it with dignity. Frankl saw this kind of strength every day in the camps. Men who were starving, freezing, humiliated, and yet chose to give their last piece of bread to someone weaker, to whisper a prayer in the dark, to carry another man when they could barely stand themselves. This was not strength for show. It was not loud. It was sacred. Because suffering strips everything away, except what you truly are. And when you can't run, and you can't fix, and you can't escape, what's left is choice. Do I become bitter, or do I become more human? Do I let this pain harden me, or do I let it break me open in a way that makes me softer, more awake to the pain of others? There is a strength that comes from getting everything you want, but there is another strength, deeper, quieter, that comes from losing what you love and choosing not to become cruel. Frankl believed this was the noblest kind of power, the ability to say, "This pain will not define me, it will refine me." And in that decision, you become something the world cannot touch. Finding meaning doesn't mean finding answers. We often confuse meaning with answers, as if pain will make sense once we figure out the lesson, as if grief will ease once we understand why it happened. But meaning is not always a conclusion. It's not a headline you can print on the front page of your life. Meaning is quieter than that. It's personal. It grows in the dark. It whispers instead of explains. Sometimes meaning is simply this: I got through it. Or, I didn't let it change who I am. Or, I kept loving even when my heart was breaking. Meaning might not tell you why something happened, but it can tell you what to do next. It can give you something to hold on to when everything else has been taken. Frankl never claimed that meaning erases suffering. He said it gives it direction. It's like walking through a storm and seeing a single light in the distance. You're still wet, you're still cold, but now you're not walking in circles. You're walking towards something, and that changes everything. Meaning doesn't solve the pain, but it keeps the pain from becoming meaningless, and sometimes that's what saves us. Inner dialogue. What is your suffering asking of you? Pause. Take a breath. Think of a moment, recent or distant, when life brought you to your knees. What did that pain demand of you? What did it take from you? And more importantly, what did it try to awaken? Was it asking you to slow down, to speak the truth you've been avoiding, to let go of something you were never meant to carry? What if your suffering isn't punishment, but invitation? Not to become someone else, but to return to something in you that's been waiting to be reclaimed. Sometimes suffering cracks the shell we've built to appear unshaken. Sometimes it breaks open the silence where we buried our unmet needs, our forgotten hopes, our oldest wounds. And in that breaking, a voice can finally rise. Ask yourself, is this pain had a message? What would it be? Not a lesson to be forced, not a silver lining to be painted over grief, just a quiet truth you've been afraid to hear. And if you're willing, just willing, to sit with that truth, you may find that the pain hasn't come to destroy you. It's come to reintroduce you to who you were before the world taught you to forget. Mini story. A person who turned suffering into purpose. His name was Daniel. He used to work in finance. Long hours, sharp suits, quiet dissatisfaction. Then one day, a phone call shattered everything. His younger brother, gone. A car accident. No warning, no goodbye. The weeks that followed were a fog. He couldn't eat. He couldn't pray. He couldn't make sense of a world that could rip someone away so suddenly. People told him, time heals. Stay strong. Everything happens for a reason. None of it helped. But one night, Daniel found an old notebook, his brother's. On the last page, scribbled in shaky handwriting, was this line: "One day, I want to help kids who don't get second chances." That sentence haunted him. It wouldn't let go. Months later, Daniel left his job. He started volunteering at a youth shelter. Not because he had healed, but because something in him had shifted. He didn't try to be a savior. He just showed up. He listened. He shared his story. And in the messiness of those shared wounds, something beautiful began to form. Today, Daniel runs his own nonprofit, a safe place for young people who've known too much pain too soon. He still misses his brother. He still grieves. But now the grief moves through him, not as a weight, but as a river. And when people ask him how he found meaning, he doesn't give them a formula. He just says, "I couldn't make the pain go away, so I gave it somewhere to go," choosing response over reaction. You can't always control what happens, but you can always choose how to meet it. This isn't a slogan. It's the most radical kind of freedom. Frankl called it the last of the human freedoms, the ability to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances. Not because it's easy, but because it's powerful. Reaction is automatic. It's instinct. It's what pain wants from you: to lash out, to shut down, to numb, to collapse. But response is a conscious act, a pause, a breath, a moment of remembering, I still have a choice here. You don't choose the illness, but you choose how to hold it. You don't choose the loss, but you choose how to carry the love that remains. You don't choose the betrayal, but you choose whether to become bitter or brave. Choosing response over reaction is not about pretending you're okay. It's about staying human when you have every reason not to be. And that's where meaning lives. Not in what happens, but in how we shape what happens into something we can live with, something we can grow from, something we can offer to others, like a scar turned into a map. This is not about control. It's about reclaiming authorship, even in the chapters you never asked for. And sometimes, that simple act is what transforms survival into strength. You may not choose your pain, but you can choose your relationship with it. You can curse it. You can numb it. You can run from it. Or you can ask it what it came to teach you. That doesn't make it good. That doesn't make it fair. But it makes it yours. And once it is yours, you can shape it into a purpose, into a prayer, into a reason to rise again, not as who you were, but as someone forged by fire and still willing to love. Frankl never promised healing would be painless. He promised it could be meaningful. And meaning, once found, or even glimpsed, has the power to hold you together when everything else is falling apart. So if you're in the middle of something heavy, something confusing, unbearable, unjust, don't rush to make it pretty. Just ask, what is this pain asking of me? And then listen, not for answers, but for direction, for dignity, for the next small step toward becoming the person this pain might just be shaping you to become. Not in spite of your suffering, but because of it.